This past year was one that the residents of Chestertown will never forget. Economically and financially, it appeared that the town was inching closer to a recovery from the lingering effects of the Great Recession of 2008, 2009. For the first time in over a decade, the number of building permits issued by the town increased substantially, and property valuations were stable or rising. The mayor and council's efforts to hold operational expenses down were starting to have positive impacts on the general fund. Then, during the early weeks of 2020, a foreboding global pandemic that originated in Wuhan, China, arrived on the shores of the United States and impacted American society on a scope and scale not seen since 1918. That's why we're sitting here on Zoom. With the onset of the COVID-19 health crisis, almost everything usually highlighted in the State of the Town address seems trivial compared to the life-threatening impacts of this infectious disease. Public safety became the most important community concern, and Governor Hogan, the Maryland Department of Health, and the Kent County Health Department led us through the pandemic with firm directives on protective safety procedures and restrictions on public gatherings. As a result, the town council changed their meeting format from in-person sessions at town hall to online Zoom meetings with live streaming video footage posted on the town website. Chestertown was the only large event that was held in 2020, followed by the cancellation of nearly every other traditional Chestertown festival. Major events that had to be canceled or modified significantly in 2020 included Earth Day, Pride Weekend, the Chestertown Tea Party Festival, the National Music Festival, Legacy Day, the Jazz Festival, the annual September Block Party on Cross Street, the HP Festival, Santa's Arrival and the Christmas Parade over Thanksgiving weekend, Downrigging Weekend, Cars on High, and Dickens Weekend. That is a lot of lost revenue for this town. Additionally, the visitor center was closed to public visitation for most of the year. Another extremely serious matter addressed by the council in 2020 was social justice and the impact of 3 centuries of systemic racism on the community. Vaulted into the national public consciousness by several tragic events in the spring and summer involving the senseless murders of African Americans at the hands of law enforcement, the town council engaged in several public discussions about how to address this issue at the local level. These conversations resulted in several important actions and resolutions adopted by the council in the fall of 2020. The first decision was to sponsor and participate in the painting of the Black Lives Matter mural on the 200 block of High Street and the We Can't Breathe mural on the 200 block of College Avenue. The council unanimously voted to adopt these murals as government speech and added the phrase "Chestertown Unites Against Racism" to both street paintings. The second decision was to pass Resolution 03-2020 regarding Black Lives Matter in Chestertown, Maryland on October 5th, 2020. In this resolution, the mayor and council officially apologized for Chestertown's historic role in the slave trade and for the lives, wealth, and freedoms that were stolen from enslaved people. It acknowledged and honored the positive contributions of African Americans to Chestertown and strongly affirmed that all citizens have equal rights, equal access to goods and services in our business, equal rights to be treated fairly by law enforcement and the criminal justice system, equal rights to start and maintain businesses, and equal access to housing and employment. The resolution also committed the town to establish a human rights commission, but the ordinance to create the commission was withdrawn at the mayor and council meeting of December 7th, 2020. The third action was to pass Resolution 05-2020, which on October 19th, 2020, authorized the creation of an equity advisory committee that will assist the town of Chestertown with Chestertown Unites Against Racism, a comprehensive 16-month plan that features a variety of initiatives addressing systemic racism in Chestertown. The plan focuses on the 3 pillars of education, legislation, and unification. Portions of the plan have already been set into motion, and implementing the remaining action items will be a continued focus of the mayor and council throughout 2021. On a fourth matter of importance, the mayor and council had a Zoom meeting with MDE and UMMS Shore Regional Hospital on November 20th, 2020 to discuss the ongoing remediation efforts to clean up the remnants of a 30-year-old heating oil spill on the hospital's Brown Street campus. The meeting was precipitated by an unauthorized shutdown of the pump and treat system at the hospital for almost 2 months that was discovered in the back of a 300+ page report. Prior to this discovery, a 6-month trial shutdown of the system had been approved by MDE and scheduled to start in the summer of 2020. However, after the unauthorized shutdown was discovered, MDE fined the hospital and the trial shutdown was postponed indefinitely, likely until at least the spring of 2021. As a result of this systemic failure, the hospital released the former consultants working on the remediation plan and hired a new firm to oversee the cleanup efforts, Gannett Fleming. During the Zoom meeting, Gannett Fleming gave a comprehensive analysis of the spill and how they intended to move forward. The town provided its own history of the spill and documented long periods of time when the mayor and council had not been informed of actions that potentially jeopardized the town's well system. The historic records show that at least 85,000 gallons of heating oil have been recovered from the site to date, and the town has suffered the loss of a shallow water well that was never replaced or compensated for by the hospital or MDE. The November meeting was the first dialogue where all parties had met at one time for over 7 years. The result was a compromise. The result was a promise of complete transparency with the town by UMMS, their consultant, and MDE in the future. What follows are the more usual annual items found in a typical state of the town address. Financial. The FY 2020 audit for the town of Chestertown was completed on October 29th, 2020 by Lindsay and Associates LLC of Towson, Maryland. The audit showed the town to be in strong financial condition with total net assets over liabilities in all departments of $19,034,763, up from $18,485,728 in 2019. Property tax rates had been raised from 37 cents to 42 cents per $100 in FY18, and again from 42 cents to 43 cents per $100 of assessed value in FY 2020, in the hopes that the increase, along with improving property values, would provide the municipality with adequate revenues to cover expenses for a meaningful number of years. In addition to the increased revenues, overall expenses decreased by $232,835. The town continues to retain the homestead property tax credit percentage of 5%, which limits the increase in a homeowner's property tax bill to 5% in any given year, no matter how much their assessment has increased. New construction in Chestertown. Somewhat ironically, 2020 was a banner year for new construction permits in town. 5 new single-family detached homes and 8 new townhouse units were approved last year, with a total reported value of $2,439,000. Commercial construction values reported on the permits for the Boss Building, the YMCA, and Dunkin' Donuts totaled $20,502,500. In the downtown historic district, major reconstruction has continued on the 200 and 300 blocks of High Street. The total value of all permits, large and small, commercial and residential, totaled $34,064,282. No doubt the efforts of the town in creating a 1,400-acre enterprise zone have begun to bear fruit. Staffing. The town has 38 full-time employees and 3 part-time positions. Our employees do an amazing job of providing services to all 5,000 plus taxpayers living on 25 miles of roads and streets. During a typical year, our part-time employees work at the visitor center where we greet thousands of tourists coming to see Chestertown every year. Requests of the county commissioners. The mayor and council continue to follow a formal process of asking the Kent County commissioners to consider 2 major requests. 1, a tax differential / tax rebate. For the 7th consecutive year, the town asked the commissioners to provide a meaningful tax differential or tax rebate to the town of Chestertown to compensate town taxpayers for planning and zoning services, which we just talked about, police coverage, and street maintenance. Within town limits, these services are paid for by the town's tax base. Yet Chestertown residents still pay the full county tax rate as if the county funds these services in our community, which they clearly do not. Kent County is one of only 2 counties in the state of Maryland that does not provide a tax differential or tax rebate to its incorporated towns, though at one time they did. The town once again urges the commissioners to stop the double taxation of Chestertown residents and provide a tax differential or tax rebate to them. And I would argue that this is a social justice issue in and of itself. Okay, hotel tax for Airbnbs. Another meaningful loss of revenues to the town and to the hotels and registered B&Bs in Chestertown is the loss of hotel tax fees that many Airbnbs are not paying to Kent County. Not only are they avoiding these fees, but they're also taking businesses away from the businesses that do. The town passed ordinance 04-2020 establishing chapter 138, registration of non-owner occupied short-term rentals in April, which requires anyone running an Airbnb to register with the town and to pay the hotel tax to Kent County. This tax is then reimbursed to the town of Chestertown. Moving right along, Chestertown Marina. In April 2020, and I cannot tell you how big of a miracle this really was, but one day we'll all look back and hopefully appreciate it. In April of 2020, the town received a hoped-for final USDA grant in the amount of $445,000 for the renovations at Chestertown Marina. This grant enabled the town to fully pay off an outstanding line of credit for improvements to the property and reimburse the general fund in the amount of $187,000 for additional expenses incurred during the construction process. The marina manager. The town of Chestertown had the extreme good fortune of hiring Paul Coleman to serve as the new marina manager after Samantha Branham, the previous manager, took a new job on Kent Island. Samantha did a fantastic job of working with new and returning boaters, establishing protocols for running the facility, and training a young and welcoming staff. Paul seamlessly took over those duties and received rave reviews for his demeanor and knowledge of the job. Prior to the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, there had been waiting lists for slips during Tea Party, Jazz Festival, and downrigging weekends for 2020. Despite the cancellations of these popular events, there were still numerous weekends where the marina was completely full, with many boating clubs visiting our port for the very first time. We commend Paul as well as dockhand Annie Page Brocker, who is a junior at Kent County High School, for their hard work and dedication. So this was a real pleasant surprise. COVID actually gave a big bump to real estate and marinas. And those are two areas where we really could have used that bump. And luckily we got it. So those guys did an awesome job. Chestertown Business Campus. On the other side of town, Dixon Valve is doing spectacular things on the Business Park campus. The campus itself is a 79-acre parcel annexed by the town in 2016 as part of Chestertown's 1,187-acre enterprise zone. The first of their buildings was a 148,000 square foot state-of-the-art warehouse. Their second building right next door was a 70,000 square foot corporate headquarters that fully opened this spring. Next came the 100,000 square foot Boss Manufacturing building, which is currently nearing completion. This fall, there was a groundbreaking for the new Kent County Family YMCA, a 57,000 square foot facility now under construction on the corner of Sheila Road and Hack Drive. This impressive Y will undoubtedly be a significant addition to Chestertown and Kent County. And I will add that as the enterprise zone tax abatements are phased out, that in about 5 years, the property tax revenues from these projects are going to be a huge windfall for the mayor and council at that time. And I can't wait. We need that to happen, but it's going to be a good thing. Louisa D.A. Carpenter Park at Washington Park. The town received funding from a DNR Community Parks and Playground grant in the amount of $138,000 for improvements at Louisa D.A. Carpenter Park. Improvements included a new basketball court, street lighting, a pavilion, a paved parking area, and significant landscaping. The project was finished this summer and a ribbon cutting was held on September 5th, 2020. That was a great event. The rail trail. Phase 4 of the rail trail has been fully approved by the Maryland Rail Administration for construction, and a new grant from the Maryland Bikeways program was received for this last section of trail, with a matching requirement that will be much more acceptable to the town's finances. This project will be put out to bid in early 2021 with the hopes of completing the build out this summer. So again, this is the section that basically will start at Morgneck Road and run into Foxley Manor. And that's kind of the last leg that the town can do before hopefully the townie takes over and runs this out to Wharton. But I'm not holding my breath, but that would be awesome if they did that. Kent Attainable Housing. Kent Attainable Housing has built a 1,500 square foot single family home for a deserving low to moderate income family on College Avenue. The family selected to occupy this new residence will be moving in soon. Farmers and Artisans Market. During the early days of COVID, the town worked with the farmers and artisans market managers to find a safe place that allowed proper distancing for vendors and customers. Fountain Park did not provide the distancing spacing required by the health department. The first breakthrough in bringing back the market came when the owners of East Coast Storage at 848 High Street generously allowed the market to move to their location on a temporary basis. This worked beautifully for several weeks until a new plan was proposed to close the 200 and 300 blocks of High Street to traffic, creating the separation needed to reopen the markets downtown. Despite the heartbreak that this caused Els Tolliver, the new arrangement was made permanent in December 2020 as it adds a festival-like atmosphere to Chestertown every Saturday. Many of the ideas for COVID-related modifications came from Julie King, who as manager of the market has done a truly outstanding job. I want to echo that. She's really been fantastic for that market and just did a great job. Long range status of the hospital. The status and existence of our local hospital is a continual concern to the council. The local Save the Hospital group still meets and expresses their concerns about the disappearing functions of the hospital center. And just going off script, they're really looking at using us as like a rural hospital special designation status, which I think would be a real win for us if that were to happen. And hopefully maybe that will be addressed during this legislative session. I'm almost done. Curb Appeal and Garden Club. This was another banner year for Curb Appeal and the Garden Club. Even though COVID-19 stopped so many things from happening in town, Curb Appeal and the Garden Club still had the town looking spectacular. Redistricting of the council wards. This is actually a really important one. The council formed a ward redistricting committee in January 2020 that started its work on Zoom. This made the task of decision-making more difficult than expected, and their work will continue at full tilt when the 2020 census results become available, hopefully in March of 2021.